And it's the white trashiest dip, but it's so fucking good.
What is it?
It is mayonnaise,
Gross.
sour cream, a ranch packet, and bacon bits. And you eat it with fucking Fritos.
Shit.
Separately, you're like, gross. And all together, you're like, gross. But when you eat it, you're like, this is why my thighs feel the way they do when they rub together. So good.
You got them fancy sauce thighs.
Roll on two. What is that from?
Welcome to SVupod, Especially Heinous. I'm Gabe.
I'm Tasha.
Today we are on season 2, episode 3, Closure Part 2.
What? So Closure Part 1 is episode 8 in our first season, if you haven't listened to it already. So in the first one, let's just read the IMDb synopsis.
Oh, yeah.
Ew. I'm not reading that description. Despite SVU's best efforts in an episode in season 1 of the show, Neil Maffin got away with multiple rapes that only whetted Maffin's appetite for more.
Ew.
I know.
It only moistened his appetite. Gross.
Wait, that was actually the description of this episode. Ooh, this is when this. Oh yes, it's all coming back. It's all coming
back to
fucking.
you.
This is the one in season 1 where Benson and Cassidy hook up.
Oh, is that where she was
Right?
wearing that cute outfit and she was like, chill, I'm going on a date. And he's like, you'll never get married because you're married to the job. And you're like, calm down, Cassidy.
But so Harper Anderson is our main survivor in that episode. The rapist, by the end of the episode, she couldn't identify him in a lineup, and so he got to leave. He collected jewelry
From his victims.
He kept them as trophies and was just like really slick at getting out of the hands of the detectives. So like they were very confident that they had the right guy, but they couldn't hold him. It was just showing a lot of the part of the system that can be so frustrating for survivors when they go to try to seek justice. She knew it was him.
Yeah. It attempts to show like the process that some survivors go through, like to get through,
Right.
So we're in the opening scene. There's a 911 operator. She's answering phone calls. She gets one annoying phone call from someone stuck in fucking traffic and wants to know why there's all this traffic. She hangs up on him and answers, and it's a woman who sounds panicked, saying there's a rape happening. She gives an address, and a dog starts barking, and a guy starts yelling. Stuff you can't understand. And then the operator is disconnected, so she sends the police.
Did she look familiar to you? The operator?
I don't remember.
She did to me, and I could not find like her credits or anything. If she's somebody that you know, let us know.
Yeah. So Benson and Stabler.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Benson and Stabler show up.
Sorry.
So Benson and Stabler show up to the scene. The cop says the 911 didn't get an apartment number, but they're knocking on all the doors. They find a card outside of the fire escape with the name Lori Thatcher on it. Cops get inside the apartment, and the victim is in the shower.
I wanted to comment on these cops out here.
Go ahead.
So the cops that Benson and Stabler come up on are total predictable dicks.
Okay.
Predictables. I'm like, stop, I have to say this. So they comment that maybe there wasn't even a perp, like it was a prank call. And I'm like, okay, that's how I want cops showing up to the most traumatic moment of my fucking life.
Yeah. So the cops get inside her apartment, and Lori is in the shower, and a cop tried to get in, but she was understandably like freaked out, and he backed off.
She's been in the shower since we got here. I went in and she freaked out. Like, fucking genius. No shit.
Yeah. So Olivia is going to work her like beautiful calm magic, and she kind of like knocks on the door, and Olivia gets into the bathroom, and there's steam from the shower, and Lori, the victim, keeps saying everything is filthy, and she's in the tub scrubbing the drain.
She's scrubbing the drain with a toothbrush.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
And she's kind of beat up, and she's like, I want everything off and gone. So Olivia like turns off the shower and tells her the guy is long gone, and gets her to kind of like calm down a little bit. And like Olivia wraps her in a towel and gets her out of the shower.
And we know that any physical evidence is destroyed.
It's gone.
As Olivia goes in to get Lori out of the shower. It's like crazy steamy. She's been showering for 45 minutes.
Yeah. So the Vic said that all he kept saying to her was, is this how you like it? Is this how you like it? She wants Olivia to stay with her. She's like blonde, petite, single. The perp watched her and stole some of her jewelry. Same MO as the season 1 episode. And he's at it again.
Olivia and Elliot have this little sidebar, and Olivia's like, bastards at it again. in. And there's a slow pan in on Stabe's face. And he's like, why am I not surprised?
Right.
And I'm like, fucking get him, you guys. I got hyped. This is such a good episode.
It really is a good episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're in the squad room. Benson and Stabler are like positive it's Kenneth Cleary, the same guy from last year. Same MO. Olivia's pissed because they had him but couldn't keep him. Cragen reminds them that it wasn't their fault. And then Stabler's like, fucking tell it to the victim. And then Lori walks in. And you're like, oh God. So they're in the interrogation. It's hard because sometimes there's like interrogation rooms and then sometimes there's like questioning rooms with like windows and stuff. So like it's not scary.
I'll always say it's an interrogation room if it's the perp, or if it's somebody they're like questioning. But if it's like a survivor coming in to
like a conference
fill out a
room
report,
or something.
That's I always say, oh, they're in a conference room at the fucking precinct. You can't tell. All the walls are like a pukey green. So
yeah, it's just some of them have windows to the outside and other ones don't.
And other ones only have a one-way mirror.
Yeah, that Cragen's standing behind. Cragen doesn't sleep or anything. He just
powers down in front of the one-way mirror.
Yeah.
It's like where you hang your Dyson. I'm only getting material from what's behind you.
So Olivia's asking Lori questions. She asked her if she was the one that opened the window because she woke up and he was in there. He had pulled her shirt over her head and had hit her.
We're watching this from the perspective of Cragen and Stabler on the other side of the one-way glass. And Stabler is listening to her give her statement to Benson. And Benson's talking to Lori. And she says, and then what happened? But then Stabler from the other side of the glass goes, he tried to kiss her. And Lori goes, he tried to kiss me. Stabler is fucking boiling inside. And it keeps going back and forth between Lori and Stabler, and he can finish her sentences because he knows it's fucking Kenneth Cleary, and he knows his MO. Another part of Cleary's MO is that he makes sure they don't see his face. Munch pops his head in to where Stabes and Cragen are, and he says they've got nothing from forensics, obviously. And Stabe just goes, there never is with Kenneth Cleary. He's so defeated until Lori says, as soon as her attacker heard the sirens, he got out of there. But Lori hadn't called 911. And we're like, that means there was a witness. Cragen's like, we've got to move slowly. And I'm like, I bet Cragen's really good at fishing. Can you just admit, like, we're going to get him. We got to move slowly. Don't let him know we're onto him. And I just imagine him and like waiters casting out. It's really quiet.
Like fly fishing, of course.
Oh yeah. He's got a fish on the line, but he's like, easy, easy. And he knows when to just,
Yeah. I want to go fishing with this guy now.
With Dan Florek?
Yeah.
You know he does.
So they're at the public safety thing where the 911 dispatcher is, and they're listening to the call. The call came from a payphone. The woman making the phone call and the dude that was yelling at her are two potential witnesses. So they take the tape. Stabler's like, well, three if you include the dog. You're not picking me up from the beach, Dad. Like, calm down.
Yeah, of course we count the dog, but don't be such a munch, Stabler.
Benson and Stabler are at the payphone the call came from. Lori's apartment is across the street on the 3rd floor, but you can't see into her apartment from the payphone, so they need to find out who lives in the apartments across the street that maybe saw. So they go into Lori's apartment and see that there are 2 apartments that can see into hers, and one of them has a gorgeous little golden retriever in the window.
Oh my God, Gabe.
Yeah?
I've never been more in love with you. My notes say the detectives go up to Lori's apartment and see that there are 2 apartments across the street that can see into Lori's. One has a gorgeous golden retriever.
Oh my God.
So they're headed over there.
I love you.
So knock, knock. Olivia announces through the door. They're outside of this apartment now with the dog. This woman's name is Mrs. Walton. She cracks the door and asks for ID. She's seeing impaired. Also, I fucking love her.
Yeah, she's great.
She tells them that the neighbors have been gone for a week. Benson tells her that her apartment looks into the window of a crime, and Mrs. Walton takes her sunglasses off and says in the most dumbed down tone for Olivia, she's like, I'm blind, detective.
Yeah.
Benson asks if anyone was there with her, and again, her tone, she goes, meow. She says that Billy took Hank out for her. Hank's the dog.
I know. I wrote, by the way, her dog's name is fucking Hank.
That was my brother's dog's name. Anyway, he was a blue Great Dane. He's not with us anymore, but he was a real sweetie. So she said that Billy would take Hank out for her. His name's Billy Smith. He lives downstairs and he's a doctor. And she goes, if he's not there, you might try to roof.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
She was like, no nonsense and didn't give a shit. And I loved her.
Yeah, she's great.
So Benson and Stabler find Billy on the roof and they need to get Munch up there to do a paternity test because this dude is Munch in his fucking 20s.
I thought he looked like John Mulaney's like cousin or something. But yeah, no, the Munch thing is, that's right. He looked like really young.
He looks like young Munch, time traveled into the future, and he's like, this'll be good. But then he like makes this really subtle joke and nobody gets it.
Right.
And he's like, that was great. And then he goes back to the 70s or whatever.
He's like, a virgin.
So he says that Hank would have never lunged or barked at anyone. He's a trained guide dog. And he's like, try the newspaper stand down the street. So as soon as they approach, there's a dog going ape shit at this newspaper stand.
It's a really adorable Doberman.
Yeah, but it is like worked up.
Yeah.
The stand owner is this growly old dude smoking a cigar who turns out to be this low rent Rodney Dangerfield character.
Yeah.
It was his dog that jumped at a woman on the phone. She was blonde and thin. He didn't get a look at her face, but she had on a black sweater, black slacks, and thong panties. I'm an ass man. I don't apologize for it.
Yeah. I was like looking at the lady behind him who was holding the dog that I assumed was his wife, just standing there listening to him talk about her panty line. It was weird. I was like, it's very disrespectful. I had a whole side story about his wife in my head. So
see, my side story immediately goes to like, they're an old couple. The guy's full of shit.
She knows it.
Oh, he's harmless.
Yeah.
Quit it, Ted.
I liked him at first. I thought he was like just kind of a funny, crotchety old New York guy with like a wet cigar. But then after he was like talking about her fucking thong, I was like, oh, okay, I don't like him anymore.
Back in the squad room, Cragen is trying to keep them open to the possibility that it wasn't Kenneth Cleary until Toots walks in and says 2 minutes after the payphone was used to call 911, a call was made to Cleary's brownstone. What?
Yeah.
Cragen won't let Benson and Stabler go because he doesn't want Cleary getting a whiff of them, so he sends Munch and Toots.
Yeah. If Cleary sees Benson and Stabler because they were doing the case before Cleary, it's done.
Yeah.
So they're at the Cleary home. Munch and Toots are at the door talking to Cleary's wife. She confirms she received a phone call around midnight.
Well, and when Munch and Toots get to the door, she comes up and she's like, well, it's about time.
Yeah. She says she's been after the phone company for months about all these phone calls she's been getting. She says a woman has been calling and harassing her and telling her that her husband is a rapist. So last night she got a call from a woman saying that her husband was like raping somebody right now. Munch and Toots tell her there was a rape across the street from where the call was made. And they're like, was your husband home last night? And she doesn't answer, but said that her husband is not a rapist. They ask her again and she says her husband was home. After she got the phone call, she went back to sleep. And then she called the phone company the next day. The phone company had offered to put a trap on the phone line, but her husband doesn't want them to because they could listen in on his personal phone calls. And he works in finance.
So back at the precinct, they're going through Cleary's phone records. Toots says that she alibied her husband, but she was choking on it. I'm like, God, he's cool. Like all his lines are always really cool. So that didn't take long. The phone records go back to Harper Anderson, the rape survivor from Closure, season 1. She's stalking him. So Benson and Stabler go to Harper's and she has Laura Crofted out.
Yeah, dude.
She's fucking Sarah Connor. She's cocky and sassy and is getting this feeling of power from following Cleary.
Yeah.
She's got this chic, pretty empty apartment, but with a huge framed print of Cleary's mugshot. And you can just like feel her rage boiling inside of her.
Yeah. And Olivia's like, you can't stalk Cleary. And she's like, stalking? Why, that's illegal. I surveil from like a legal distance. She knew that they were going to be coming pretty much.
Yeah. The detectives don't like it, but Harper doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
She tells them that she saw him disappear into the alley and then saw the fire escape, but didn't actually see him go up the fire escape.
Yeah. By the time she got to the alley, he was gone. And then she circled the apartment to make sure there was like no way that she could have missed him.
And then she did see him run out of the service entrance of the building as the sirens were blaring. And the whole time she's like, oh, have a glass of wine. It's 6. The workday is done. He's a workaholic and won't leave the office till 8. So we have like an hour and a half to chat. They challenge her that she doesn't even know for certain that he raped her since she couldn't ID him. And she says that she went to his hearing for theft of stolen goods. And when he was leaving the courthouse, he winked at her. Motherfucker.
Yeah.
Harper makes it clear that she expects nothing from the NYPD. Benson and Harper then go toe to toe. Benson says she's not equipped to deal, but Harper disagrees because somebody's got to do it. And she's like, you're harassing his wife. And she's like, give me a break. She's enabling a rapist and you're too busy to deal with him, so I will.
Yeah, I was like, damn.
I love her and I agree with her. And she's channeling her energy. And you know what? She still has integrity. They're like, oh, you're doing all this shit. She could have said she saw him go up the fire escape. She she was alone.
Mhm.
She didn't see him go up the fire escape.
Mm-hmm.
And she was honest about it.
Yeah, true.
So-
That's true. I didn't even think about that part of it.
I didn't until just now when we were talking about it.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh.
So they're in the squad room. Olivia's explaining that the system failed Harper and she's operating the best that she can. And then Toots says, street justice is always bloody. And I think that's his first like actual quip in the show.
You think so?
Yeah, this is the first time that they like panned over and over to him and he got to say like a little iced tea thing, you know?
Yeah. He got to say a little, thanks, Ice.
Yeah.
This shifted really quickly for my perspective of it because Benson is really on the side of Harper, but like, I don't think she was trying to give that to Harper too much when she was like,
Yeah.
hey, you're kind of taking this into your own hands and you're not being safe and blah, 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 blah.
She also wants to like protect Harper
Mhm.
because this is potentially dangerous and she could end up, I mean, I'm not going to tell people how to survive that stuff, but you know, it's probably
Right.
not the healthiest thing, but
Yeah.
who are we to say? And Olivia's
Right.
right. Like the system failed her and she's doing the best that she can.
Mhm.
Cragen gets Munch and Toots to go bring Harper in to have a blunt talking to and says Olivia's too close to her and Cragen wants Olivia and Stabler to get in Cleary's face and let him know they're onto him.
Yeah, Cragen's ready. He's got his disappointed dad wagon finger ready to talk to Harper. Dude, fucking Benson and Stabler get out of the car in Cleary's neighborhood. Harper's got his mugshot with rapist underneath on flyers taped up all down the street. And they get there right as Harper and Mrs. Cleary are full on fighting. And Mrs. Cleary's like, my son's gonna see these. And Harper's like, he'll know where he came from. You're enabling a rapist. The detectives separate the women right as this tiny flashy convertible peels up and Cleary gets out.
It was a tiny little Matchbox car.
I should have had John look at it because he would have known what kind of car it was. But it looked like it ran on double A's.
Yeah, it did.
It was like there's no room for an engine in that thing.
No. So what he does when he leaves work is he goes into the back and has to wind up the car and then hop in quick and zoom home.
It runs on a twisted up rubber band.
Yeah.
It's like, I hope traffic's light. Fucking stupid.
It was good.
So he says he was at home with his wife when Lori was raped. And Harper's like, you're lying. I saw you. She is fucking killing this.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this version of her. So then Cleary says to the detectives, so every time a woman's raped, you're going to come for me? And Stabe's like, not every time.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleary goes, how long do I have to bear the brunt of this woman forgetting to take her lithium? She's obviously damaged.
Ooh.
And Harper takes a deep breath, grabs a metal pipe sticking out of the trash can, spins on her heel, and Beyonce music video smashes the dude's fucking windshield
God.
on his stupid little car. It was so
Awesome.
good and so satisfying.
Immediately it was like lemonade.
So Benson goes right up to her.
She's like, don't fucking make me cuff you.
And Harper's not wrong. She goes, perfect. Arrest me, not the rapist.
Right.
She gives no fucks anymore. She has zero to be afraid of, and she fucking knows it. Everyone walks off, and smug shitbag is smirking until his wife mean mugs him and walks inside.
Yeah.
Like, that was the first moment that we saw, like, there's cracks in Mrs. Cleary.
Yep. Craig and Benson and Stabler are in Cabot's office. She wants to know if they have any more info on Lori Thatcher's rape. She's the victim in the beginning of the episode that kind of gets like pushed to the side until the end.
Yeah.
So Lori could do a voice ID, but they know Cleary won't come down to the station on his own, and they need probable cause. So Olivia says that Harper saw him exiting Lori Thatcher's building, but not the apartment, and that's the big difference here. And then Harper breaking the windshield pretty much cancels her as a witness now anyways.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they're really just arguing semantics, but these are the things that like matter in the
court.
Black and white of court. Yeah. It's just so frustrating because she saw him leaving the building where a woman was raped with an MO that she's familiar with, that it's just, it feels like fucking gaslighting. Like, no wonder you're smashing this guy's fucking windshield.
You're just like,
Cabot's on their side, and she says she'll field anything Cleary tries to bring the courts against Harper.
Yeah.
So they're not worried about like him coming for her because Cabot's got it covered.
Mm-hmm. And Olivia's like, maybe we need to fucking start where Harper left off with the following him and stuff. And so Cragen's all for them following him, but Cragen's like, I can't authorize overtime to follow Cleary, but like Benson and Stabler don't care. They can afford their orange juice and a single tomato.
Wow, that was a really, really, really deep call.
It was.
Benson and Stabler go into Cleary's office. They pass him and ask to see his boss. They are all biz. This is some suit and tie cop shit. Every time the boss asks a question, they don't even deflect it. They just completely ignore him and continue their questioning.
I mean, they start off the thing saying, yeah, we're investigating some serial rapists, and then asks what they can tell him about Cleary. And he's like, what? Like, they're like putting these little seeds of like, Cleary's fucked up, maybe, you know?
Yeah. So the boss tells him that Cleary is a top earner and workaholic who's always at the office. He spends half his time in Philly for work, and there's a corporate apartment there. Benson and Stabler let the boss know about Cleary's misdemeanor possession of stolen property and ask for his travel records. They like basically say it in passing.
Yep.
And his boss is left with so many questions and zero answers. And that is some strategy to fuck with Cleary for sure, because he is now a company liability.
Yeah. So this is fucking awesome. So
yeah,
I love this.
me too.
Cleary goes outside the building and sees Stabler in his car eating some food.
Pounding a hoagie.
Cleary walks up. He's like, you just had to tell my boss about the possession of stolen property. I brought in $58 million last quarter. Like, think they give a shit about a misdemeanor? And Stabler says, and a rapist? And then fucking Cleary seriously leans in closer to Stabler, which is like, what are you doing? So he fucking leans into Stabler and says, from one hungry man to another, is there anything better than gorging on a fresh caught meal? Blech. And then tries to fucking walk away. Oh my God, this was so hot. Stabler fucking grabbed him by his tie and pulled him closer to him. He's like, you won't be eating out anymore, and lets him go. And I was like, fucking sploosh. You know? Like, holy shit. It was awesome.
Fucking Stabes, and he just like spits out the window, and they alpha dog stare at each other as Cleary like backs away. Oh,
you can just see Cleary like slowly, like little cracks in him because of the shit that they're doing. Did you know that I was gonna like lose it about that scene?
Yeah. Stabler was cool, and like his rage was on the surface, yet like wouldn't break the surface. And when he grabbed him by his tie, and it was so controlled, and this guy is just a fucking weaselly little fuck. Like, my favorite part about it is that Stabes kept eating his hoagie while they were having this talk, and like he finished it at just the right time. And then after he let him go, he spits, and he's just like,
yeah,
staring him down, you know?
Don't lean in and say some shit to Stabler. Oh my God.
Stabler's got anger issues. Cleary.
Yeah, they're in the squad room. Munch found that in the last 6 months, there have been 3 rapes that have Cleary's signature MO. Benson and Munch are cross-referencing the dates that he was in Philly to the dates of the women that were raped in Philly. And every single one was when he was there. And he's supposed to go to Philly tomorrow on an Amtrak.
Cragen wants Munch to follow him, and Munch is like, is there something wrong with the facts? Ever confused by his relationship with technology. Cragen says, Philly's under investigation for dumping rape accusations as unfounded, so he doesn't trust them, and he wants his own people on it.
I fucking love Cragen.
Me too, but my question is, isn't there jurisdictional stuff there? Like, a detective can just follow him to Philly?
Well, if they're doing their own investigation, right?
Yeah.
They maybe couldn't arrest him there.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's all a tactic.
Right. So it's nighttime, and it's outside Cleary's home, and dude is taking out his trash, and he sees somebody sitting in a car, and he like looks in, and it's fucking Toots, and he like flashes his badge like, hey, I'm watching you, motherfucker.
It's so cute because it's like completely dark, and you just see Tutuola sitting in the driver's seat of his car, and he doesn't break eye contact or blink.
Yeah.
Staring at Cleary, and you just see his hand come up with his badge in it, and he just sort of like wiggles it back and forth.
So now we're at Penn Station the next day. Cleary is headed to Philly on the train, and Munch and Toots say hi and give him shit.
Like, he gets out of the cab, and they're standing there.
They're like, what's up? Cleary looks over to Toots and says, and you are? And Toots says, the knot in the pit of your stomach. And I was like, eee!
Cleary's trying to stay hard, and he's like, I hate to disappoint you, but I don't mind the company or the attention. And Munch sasses back, and he's like, so there's no need to ask. And he looks over his transition sunglasses, and he goes, is this how you like it?
Ooh, yeah.
Cleary does not like that.
That was great.
Yeah. He storms off to catch his train. Toots and Munch are such incredible partners.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe, as any of us, I cannot believe that Ice-T was slated to only be on like 4 episodes at first.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God. He was supposed to go on as like a transition person, or like, I don't know. But he was like, oh yeah, I was set for like 4 episodes, and now it's like 20 years.
Fucking A, man. With a woman like Coco by your side, you can do anything.
Anything.
You know, all things are possible.
I can do anything. Okay, so this is when I was like, wait, I thought they were like trying to be stealth mode with Cleary, and now they're like, hey, we're following you to Philly. We got stuff going on there. Just going to be on the same train. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, oh, you're not covertly following him to Philly. You want him to know that you're there so that he doesn't commit a crime, so that he doesn't rape somebody.
Yeah.
So they're like, they can't do anything, but they can let him know that, like, we got eyes on you, motherfucker. So you're not going to get away with shit.
Right.
So that's what I'm assuming the whole, like, out in the open following him shit is.
Yeah.
You know, it's intimidation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in the squad room. Benson and Stabler get facts of a list and the description of the stolen jewelry of the rapes in Philly, matching the Cleary MO. So there's 3 in New York City and 3 in Philly. So that's like 6 pieces of jewelry altogether.
So Staves is going to go ask Mrs. Cleary if she has any of those pieces.
So then Cragen's worried that Mrs. Cleary is in denial or is possibly an accessory. And then there's also the issue of spousal privilege. So spousal privilege basically means that one spouse cannot be compelled to give a testimony against another in a criminal trial, but a spouse can waive that.
Yeah, that's what I was confused with later.
Well, because there's like a whole bunch, there's like two different types. It was like spousal privilege with communication and spousal privilege with, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it, but either way, a spouse can waive it. Stabler tells Cragen, he's like, I won't ask her about her husband's rapes. I just want to show her the jewelry.
Yeah. He thinks it's going to put pressure on things at home, and it's worth a shot because there's not a whole lot more they can do.
Yeah.
And he's confident that he can approach this appropriately, and he takes off.
And then Olivia is going to meet with Harper for coffee because she feels like she dropped the ball with her. She's actually meeting her at a firing range. And Cragen's like, what? And she's like, bye, Dad. You know?
Yeah, she's like, she's permitted. See you later. And like, they're going full Sarah Connor transition with Harper, and I am into it.
Dude, yeah. So we're at SVU in Philly. Munch and Toots are being told the stories by the Philly rape victims.
They're all telling chillingly similar stories, and it's a scene that really displays a range of responses. Like, it's subtle, but one's boiling under the surface, one seems checked out, and one is on the verge of crying the whole time. At the end, the angry one says that she asked him if his mother knew what he was doing, and he told her that his mom just wanted him to be happy.
Yeah.
And Munch and Toots were like,
yep.
Let's go fuck with this guy.
Yeah. Stabler shows up at the Cleary home, and he's knocking on the door trying to talk to Mrs. Cleary. She doesn't want to talk to him, but he's standing out the door talking about rape loudly, so she answers the door, and she's like, shut up, and like, quit harassing me and my family.
We haven't seen this tactic from Stabes yet. This is another character that Officer Elliot Stabler, detective officer, I don't know all the detective sergeant officer,
Lieutenant,
Private Elliot Stabler,
swashbuckler Stabler.
He has so many layers. So when she's like, oh, I don't want you to stand on my stoop yelling rape through my door. And he stands up straight and he goes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And he like turns on to this really like respectful and like hard yet compassionate. It's beautifully done. So he tells her that he has a list of jewelry that they believe her husband stole from the victims. And she argues that her husband makes money and doesn't need to steal, but Stabes is ready for that. And he tells her that this is a sickness. It has nothing to do with money. He uses the trophies as a way to relive the rapes and get excited. And she's sitting there the whole time, like you can see her taking it in, and she's playing with the necklace that she's wearing kind of like mindlessly. She seems to soften up a little bit, and Stabes fucking brings it home. And he goes, I'm sorry to put you through this. I know this is a terrible ordeal for you, but it's worse for the victims. And quite frankly, and his voice cracks and he goes, I don't know where else to turn.
Yes.
Like he's fucking got her. He fishes with Cragen.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cause he's like slowly. There it is. Fucking frying up bluegills, baby.
Oh my God. Oh, yum.
He goes, I won't bother you again. And he walks away. And I'm like, oh, he is not done with you by a long shot, lady.
Yeah. He leaves a list of jewelry with her for her to like, she's going to go through her shit,
Oh, yeah, 100%. Oh, that's the first thing I would do.
Yes. Okay. Harper and Olivia are at the fucking firing range.
When we come into this scene, the visual of it's awesome because we're looking down the barrel of Harper firing this gun at the shooting range. And I'm not a gun gal, but she definitely feels some power with this
Oh, yeah,
thing.
for sure. Harper's a fucking crack shot and has an insane gun. It's a 50 caliber double action Desert Eagle 14 shot clip. This thing is massive. Olivia's like, a 14 shot clip is illegal in New York. And she's like, well, 8 is plenty. So Harper tells Olivia she's like not interested in revenge or justice anymore.
She goes, do you think I'm Velma Vigilante stalking Cleary, waiting for the perfect moment to shoot him? That's not who I am.
Olivia's like, well, why the fuck are you following him then? And she's like, because I'm fucking afraid of him and he's the last thing I'm afraid of. And if she can get over that, then she will have her life back completely. And then Benson's like, do you want to go get a drink? So they're walking to this place around the corner.
Holy shit, they run into Mrs. Cleary. She says that she was just leaving Harper a note, so I guess they were right by Harper's place. They have this amazing exchange that is so women supporting women empowering that I got chills.
Yeah.
She tells Harper that she was defending her husband, but now she feels guilty. And Benson asked what made her change her mind, and she slowly pulls out a gallon-sized Ziploc, which is way bigger than what she needed to have, but that's like not the point. But she pulls the Ziploc bag full of jewelry out of her purse. And we're all like,
oh my God.
Turn around.
Every now and then
Right?
I get a little... Didn't we make a music video to that too?
Yeah. So now we're at the precinct. Mrs. Cleary is telling Benson, Stabler, and Cabot about receiving all of this jewelry from her husband as Olivia carefully lays it out on the table. And she goes, he called them no special occasion gifts. He'd get excited when I tried them on, and I thought it was romantic. Ugh. Stabler comes up and whispers to Cabot that 6 of the pieces match, and Cabot goes, what about the rest? Because there was a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Cleary was like, he gave those to me the same way, and I don't want them. Of course, there's more rapes that they don't know about. And Mrs. Cleary's crying, and she picks up her cell and dials it and goes, I can't take it. Come home now. And she's like freaking out. So I assume it's her husband. And she turns to tell them that he'll be on the next train home from Philly. So Munch and Toots are like 4 steps behind Cleary coming out of Penn Station. And I laughed a little bit here because like the way cop shows follow perps is like super stealth, but I'm like, not Munch and Toots. So remember last season when Munch was terrible at not looking like a cartoony detective when he'd be following somebody? And now they're just like, let's pivot and high school bully this guy.
Yeah. He literally looked like Darkwing Duck. You know what I mean?
Yes. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
I know. I don't know how or why that popped in my head.
They're like on his heels. Cleary turns around and finally snaps that he's going to call his lawyer and the police commissioner. And that's when Benson and Stabler just stroll up and they're so satisfied to say, you're under arrest. And that got me thinking, we should keep track of who says you're under arrest and Mirandizes each perp. Because I'm like, do you think they take turns intentionally? Or is it like, oh no, I got to say it last time. It's your turn. No, I insist. And sometimes they do it in unison just for fun.
Well, I feel like Olivia does it a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like Stabler does like the grabbing of the guy and the handcuffing, or at least like the grabbing of him, of the person, and then she handcuffs and says it a lot.
Yeah.
Also, I liked how Cleary, like in the first season, in the first episode he was in, he was like smug the whole time. And throughout this episode, he had a smug smile like the whole time. But like with them following him and like them making it aware, like they want to be 4 steps behind him. They want him to know that they're following him. You can just see his face is like getting more and more like frustrated and like nervous.
The subtlety of that was really good.
Yeah, he did a good job of showing how effective their following tactics were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're in the precinct. You can see Cragen's like dad face in the glass reflection. So Lori Thatcher is going to pick him out. Now, again, Lori Thatcher is the victim in this episode.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's so many women involved. And
yeah, Harper Anderson is really stealing the thunder here.
yeah, Lori wants to close her eyes. She doesn't want to see the dudes. Cragen has them each say, is this how you like it? So this is something I was always wondering, like, how come the people that do lineups don't like mask their voice? How come it doesn't come to like Cleary and he's like, is this how you like it? Like, you know, or like,
is this how you like it? Like, yeah, why?
And then Cragen's like, quit it.
As they're going in, it's kind of like you can't make a stupid face when you get your driver's license photo. It's like the same thing. Like you're going in there, like, just be fucking normal. Just say in internet, we know what your voice is. Is this how you like it?
So she picks out Cleary immediately. Like she recognizes his voice. And then she runs out and Olivia goes after her. Cleary's creepy-ass lawyer comes out of the shadows. Like, I didn't even see him in there in the beginning.
He is a slick-haired, sweaty meatball of a man with a mustache.
Yeah. Yes. He's, like, very entertaining.
Ugh. He's got octopus tentacles for legs. You just can't see
Yes,
them.
For sure. He's an octopus with a mustache in a trench coat. I was going to go on a whole octopus. He had to go to law school to send money back to his family. And nobody's noticed that it's an octopus in a trench coat. Top of his class. Okay. So then the yeah, the other women from Philly pick him out of the lineup as well, like immediately.
This is what I hate Cleary's lawyer so much. The next victim IDs Cleary just as quickly as Lori did. And he's so dismissive to the survivors. And he says he doesn't need to stay for the others because he's like, well, we see where this is going. I'm sure you'll do it fine. And he says he'll see Cabot in court. And I'm assuming that that's pretty unprofesh.
Yeah, probably. They're in the arraignment court. The judge is reading Cleary's counts. Cleary looks back and sees Harper and like smugly smiles. And then somebody's like butt moves out of the way and his fucking wife is sitting next to her.
Yes.
His fucking face is priceless. He's like, oh, fuck.
It was so good. I loved it because you didn't even notice. You just kind of like saw half the screen was covered by
a butt.
And then he's like, oh man, those two women joining fucking forces against this piece of shit. Everything about it made my heart squeal.
Yeah. So Cabot wants remand without bail. His lawyer is fighting it, saying he's not a flight risk. And Cabot said he has a 7-figure salary. She's like, if he can afford you as a lawyer, he can afford to fly. And then Cleary's lawyer is like, oh, he'll give up his passport. And Cabot's like, no, he's a fucking menace to women and has victims in different states.
Right.
So Cabot and the judge is like, okay, pick a fucking number. And Cabot is like 500,000. And the judge says, let's double that. And then Cleary must be rich as hell because his lawyer was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like $1 million.
Bail's at $1 million, but all you have to do is go to a bail bondsman. And so for him to get his hands on $100,000, because like as far as
$100,000. Oh, $1 million, right?
No, 100,000 because
Cabot asked for 500,000. The judge says, let's double it.
Right. But have you ever watched Dog the Bounty Hunter? I'm going to explain how people get out on bail. They don't have to give the $1 million. What they do is they go to a bail bondsman. They give him 10% of whatever, and then they can get out on bail. That's why there is a Dog the Bounty Hunter, because if he were to flee, then that guy and his mullet would be after him.
Oh.
Because otherwise the bail bondsman is in it for the $1 million.
Right. Okay.
So that's... Yeah.
Okay. So we're in the court hallway. Harper runs up to Cabot and says, is this the best you can do? And Mrs. Cleary runs up as well. And Cabot tells her that she shouldn't be there because she's actually her witness. And Mrs. Cleary's like, I came because I thought maybe there was a chance I was wrong, but then I saw the way he looked at Harper and I just knew. And then Cabot was like, is there anything I can do for you right now? And she's like, yeah. Do you know a good divorce lawyer?
And I'm like, great. Can we start calling her by her first name now and not this Mrs. Cleary bullshit that makes her not an individual but this dude's wife?
What's her name?
We find out later, but I started calling her this is the point where I started calling her Susan because she deserved a name and she looked like a Susan to me.
Okay. I'm not going to do that until we find her name because it's going to be confusing.
Well, I'm going to do it, but I'll clarify every time that it's Mrs. Cleary because then when I did find out her name, it was a lot of fun for me.
Okay. One of Cleary's lawyers comes up and wants to talk to Cabot. Harper turns around and she's like, your fucking client raped me and you're going to burn in hell. And then the lawyer's like, I'm Jewish. There is no hell.
Yeah. And I'm like, what do you say to that? She's like, well, all right.
Well, fine, sir. The lawyer hands Cabot a bunch of motions that he's filing.
He's going big.
Yeah. She was like, let's not dance around. Let's just give me your fucking motions. He's like, cool. And then they'll meet each other in the judge's chambers.
Yeah. Because he's filing a motion to suppress evidence due to spousal privilege.
Mostly involving this jewelry. And this is like a huge fucking, this is a big part of the case.
And I learned something here because I thought spousal privilege just meant the spouse had the option not to testify, which in and of itself is a weird law. But there's like a spousal privilege on the other end where like you can fucking gag them because they're your husband or wife, which is so weird.
I thought that
that's
it was
what they're
just,
trying.
I thought it was just that you could waive those or not. I mean, but maybe there's different.
I mean, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, the spousal privilege that I knew about would be on her end, where she could just say, "I don't want to testify against my husband."
That's what
and
I
she's
thought
like,
too.
I want to tell everybody every fucking thing I know, and
the lawyer's like,
they're trying to suppress that.
Yeah, so they can actually say like you can't have her in court, or she can't talk about stuff in court.
So Cabot and this other big-time lawyer, the big-time defense attorney, are in the chambers of Judge Margaret Barry. She is like if the Queen of England had a twin sister, but they were the old lady version Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap. This lady is the queen trying to live as an American judge, but like can't help drinking tea and giving herself away. So she says, spousal privilege is inviolate. Discovery was made through the wife. Give me a good reason not to throw out the jewelry. I'm like, you're really trying hard to have an American accent and you don't have that. And both attorneys are going super hard. Cabot is arguing the entire procedure of how they made sure not to violate any spousal privilege laws, but Cleary's lawyer is arguing that Stabes went to Mrs. Cleary with the full intent of discovery and should have given the list to Mr. Cleary and not disrupted his wife. The judge only hears so much and says they have to limit it to the receipts of the jewelry and by whom, and that's it. Next is basically her attitude.
Yeah, because Cabot was like, wait. She's like, next.
Yeah, she won't hear anything further on it. The defense then tries to get the voice IDs thrown out, but Margie Berry is not dealing with that shit and says he can go after that during cross and offers him more tea. She is a tight butthole of a woman, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, so they're in the Supreme Court now. Lori Thatcher is on the stand. If you guys remember who Lori Thatcher is, she's the victim in this. She points to Mr. Cleary during the cross-examination. She's like, I know it was him. The fucking octopus lawyer comes up.
Oh, girl. That's his legs, you guys. It's not gross. It's an octopus man's legs. Okay. Get your mind out of the gutter.
Like Squidward, kind of like.
He's like, oh, he wishes he was fucking Ursula.
He's a piece of shit.
He's Ursula's second cousin who she doesn't talk to when the family gets together. He's just like over at the fucking dessert table pounding candied shrimp or some shit. What do octopi eat?
Candied shrimp. I know that. If I know anything, I know they eat candied shrimp. So
okay, go ahead.
Octopus lawyer is like, well, you didn't actually see him, but you heard him. So he like takes out a fucking tape recorder and plays a man's voice saying, is this how you like it? She's like, I don't recognize it. But the man on the tape is a coworker that she talks to every day. And she's like, oh my God. What he's trying to do is be like, you don't know. Just listening doesn't mean that you know who it is.
Right. If you can't ID this guy that you talk to every day, but he gave zero context for the tape, right? So like, I'll see somebody that I see multiple times a week in a different location. Let's say I see them at fucking school and then I see them at the grocery store. I will not approach you because I am not 100% sure. And I guarantee I don't know your name. But if I see you at the place that you belong in, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just fucking randomly be like, hey, what's this? And she's going to go, oh, Greg, or fucking whatever.
I think that's the kind of the point he's trying to make is like.
Yeah. So Cabot's objections are intensely peppered through his whole thing, this whole like tape recorder shit that he's doing. And the judge agrees with her. And I'm like, fuck off, meatball. Meat Baltipus. I don't know. I was trying to put
Meat Baltic.
Baltipus. That was my nickname in high school.
Spaghettipus.
And also, like, I hate you can't recognize. I mean, there's so many holes in what he's saying, and I know this is why the judge ended up agreeing with Cabot. Like, this is also a traumatic event, and there are things that you never forget when you experience a traumatic event, you know? So it's like when she heard his voice, it was immediate that she recognized it. She doesn't have trauma with this fucking coworker. You know? I don't know.
Right.
Nobody needs me to convince them that this fucking lawyer's a slimeball, so. Okay, so Cabot and Benson are prepping Susan. Remember, that's what I'm calling Mrs. Cleary. This is in a conference room. They're prepping her for her turn on the stand. She's upset and confused why they can't ask her the detailed questions about how he would have her wear the jewelry before sex and get like super excited and shit. They explain to her that they're only allowed to ask so much because of the restrictions given by the queen. She's really worked up because she does not want him to get custody of their son, who I forgot existed. Cabot and Benson then get her to focus, take some deep breaths, because they're like, you need to just focus on what we need to do, right? So now she's on the stand in the courtroom answering the questions. Where she got the jewelry, what?
Oh, God. Just... She's so like this lady played a like on the edge. My world just collapsed around me. My husband's a fucking rapist. Like, I don't think I can do this fucking person. Because the whole time I was like, don't say anything about the fucking jewelry because you could just ruin this. Don't say anything. It's just like, no way. Oh, God. Go ahead.
Yeah. She's on the stand. She's answering the questions about where she got the jewelry, when he gave it to her, was it a special occasion? They're trying to connect the timeline for the jury here because that's all they can really use this for.
Yeah. She's
able to give an exact date when she received a necklace, and the defense objects, stating there's no way she would know the exact date. And I'm like, you're such a smart lawyer, but a simple man. The judge asks how she knows the date, and fucking Mrs. Cleary says that it was the night before her son's first day of school, and her husband had come home from a Philly trip to be there for that. fuck you guys. That's shit that moms know. Okay. Cabot tries to go forward, highlighting that the necklace was owned by a woman who had been raped the night before, but got checked by the judge and told to stay within the scope. So Cabot moves on and pulls out a ring to ask if Susan recognizes it. Her husband gave it to her. She remembers because they were dressing for a charity event. Mrs. Cleary fucking goes off the rails and cannot calm down. She yells that he got so excited that he had to have sex right then. You had me wear your trophy so you could get off, you sick, twisted bastard. And I'm like, oh, fuck. The defense calls her fucking hysterical and moves for a mistrial because she's caused irreparable damage to the jury. And he gets it. Fuck. The judge tells Cabot she holds her responsible because of the witness's fragile and emotional state and tells her to get some professionalism and start over. Harper runs up to Susan and pets her hair, and Susan is out of breath apologizing, and they both look at Cleary, and he fucking smiles. He smiles at them. Piece of shit.
I know.
Okay.
So
I get really worked up.
No, it was good because it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
You know, because then she's like, wow, and you're like, oh no, like he's gonna get away again, you know? So they're in Cragen's office. Cragen pours Cabot a glass of vodka or gin or whatever the fuck he has in his drawer. She's like, are you gonna have one? And he's like, AA. I was like, cool.
It's a real dad teen daughter moment.
Cragen's pretty much like, stop whining. There's victims and we have to keep going. And then she's like, I don't need this, you know, whatever. And he's like, shut up.
But he says that Mrs. Cleary is the most victimized of them all because she has his son and has to deal with him for the rest of his life. And I don't think that's for him to decide.
It's not, yeah.
But I get it. Like, she is intensely a victim.
Like, Cabot is feeling real bad about herself, and he's trying to get her, like, pumped back up. Like, dude, quit fucking whining. We're a bad bitch. Let's keep going. We need to help these people. We need to help these victims. And Mrs. Cleary is a victim. It's just in a different way, you know?
Right.
Then all of a sudden the phone rings and Cragen picks it up and he's like, we're on our way.
Oh, shit.
So they're at the Cleary house. Mrs. Cleary has tears.
Wait, I need a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're at the Cleary house. Mrs. Cleary has tears streaming down her face.
She says she stopped to get a few things and he hit her and he wouldn't stop. And Harper was there with her. I'm assuming just because they're like super leaning on each other, like codependency wise. So Harper's there and said that she had no choice. Benson asks who tried to clean up. And Harper goes, I did. Meredith was hysterical. She didn't want the blood soaking into the floor. And I was like, oh, Meredith? She is such a Meredith, by the way. I can't believe I was like, Susan. Duh. Harper asks if it matters. Like, oh, does that matter that someone tried to clean up? And Olivia goes, Harper, you know it does. Bleach kills gunshot residue. And Harper's like, And Staves asks who shot him. Meredith says she did. And Harper stares him down.
She also like kind of gives a little like Cleary smirk at like.
Okay, so before they went to this scene, I was like, oh my God, are they going to do a Closure Part 3? I don't remember them ever having like a 3-parter besides the only one that I can think of is when fucking Porn Stash from Orange is the New Black is the dude who kidnaps Benson and shit. Like way in the future.
God, I didn't realize that was him.
Oh my God, yeah, it is.
Whoa.
Anyway, this episode is my favorite episode to date. Like from everything that we've covered.
Even in the first season?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa. Think
of
really
a better
good.
one. This is amazing.
Oh, you're right.
Part of it, I think, because it wasn't like, what is this fucking twist? It's like, of course this happens.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I love it. And Harper's Sarah Connoring through the whole thing. And her evolution from the first one to this one.
We don't know if Lori Thatcher is doing okay or anything, or if she got some therapy or anything. We don't know anything about the original victim. Yeah.
Remember that person who commented on our shit and was like, ugh, SVU's overrated. And I'm like, how? It's like, I'm not going to argue with somebody on the internet anymore, but it's like, you don't know shit, dude.
Man, I'll just hop on that shit and just say shit to people I don't even know.
Yeah.
I was reading a thread of something and there was like thousands of comments and some guy to me seemed a little like worked up. And I just replied and was like, chill out, guy. Like, that's it. And like, that could possibly start an internet fight with somebody I don't. It's like, no, Gabe, you chill out, guy. I'm excited for this chaser.
Dude, it is something else. I tell you what, this shit's fucked. Okay. This chaser is about Lonnie Keith. Okay, so this isn't the worst thing about this guy, but it's going to be the thing you notice first. He is the king of gaslighters. The majority of this is from the perspective of this guy's wife.
Okay.
She gets a first name right from the jump, and her name is Carrie.
So this is about Lonnie and Carrie White. What did you
Lonnie
say?
Keith.
Lonnie and Carrie Keith.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did I get White from?
I have no idea, dude. So Carrie Rogers grew up in Prunedale, California. It was the summer of 1991, and this is where it turns into a memory scene, and you can faintly hear CNC Music Factory in the background.
Cool.
Everybody dance now. Ba-ba-ba-da-ba-ba.
Quit it.
I'm waiting for you to do it with me. Just go. So in the summer of 1991, she was 15 years old. She met 18-year-old Lonnie Keith. They went on a date. They talked, they really hit it off, and her mom liked him right away. These two became high school sweethearts, and when Carrie graduated, she moved to live with Lonnie, who had moved for college, like 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1994, they had an apartment together. She's like, it was fun to kind of like pretend like we had this adult relationship, which they did, but she had been with him since she was 15.
Mm-hmm.
So they were finally like, it was different now and doing like grown-up things. And there was shit, like regular shit, where she's like, I need you to help me do things around the house. And he's like, I'm kind of a piece of shit though. But I will, and really placating whatever. Like that was like a trait of his, is that he would placate what she asked of him, and then shit would go back to like him being shitty. You ever date anybody like that, Game?
Oh no, never even like, I didn't even think that existed.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
I love the trying for like a week and then 6 months of bullshit.
God. Those years of my fucking life. So one of her biggest issues is there was a porn issue. She caught him watching porn all the time, and not everybody cares about that. I don't care about that, but she did, and that's something that two people that are going to be together need to work out. So she wasn't down with it. Like she caught him. Here's the thing. This is why he's so gaslighty. Like the first time she caught him, he was like hanging out with a buddy watching porn. He's like, it's not mine. It's his. He wanted to watch it. It's just starting. It's like, no, this isn't, I don't do this. And she's like, all right, well, I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. And he's like, all right, well, it'll never happen again. But then she kept catching him watching porn, and he kept coming up with like bizarre excuses. So eventually she got fed up with it. She didn't like it. So she ended up moving out to Paradise, California to go to beauty school and to be by her mom.
Wait, she left him because of porn? That's so weird to me. I guess things were different then.
It's just not something that, right. That's why I wanted to put like an asterisk there, because not everybody cares about that shit. I don't understand caring about it.
I feel like now we know that it's kind of more of like, it can be healthy to watch porn. I think it's different when you're like, you're like, let's say you meet a woman and you guys are going to have sex, and you're just like, all right, I'm just going to like dip you in rubber and light your hair on fire. And she's like, whoa. Like we haven't, you know what I mean? Like,
if they're like about to start making out and he spits on his hand.
Yeah, he just spits in your mouth or something, and you're like, whoa. But it's like, where you can't tell the difference between like real life and porn.
And that's what people are talking about with like young people and stuff, how they're like, this is how they're learning about sex, when we learned about sex from like, American Pie, and that was a big fucking deal.
Yeah, it's like,
we'll just tell mom that we ate it.
It's just like doing what had been happening for thousands of years. It was like finding whatever porn was under their dad's mattress. Now it's like the internet. So,
but I mean, I get the whole desensitization and everything, and I'm not here to debate like whether it's healthy for a relationship or not, but it was something that she made clear that she wasn't down with. I mean, it just sounds like a young person thing where it's like, oh yeah, no, I won't do that anymore, but I'm gonna do it anyway. As you get older, you're sort of like, oh, this is something that is really upsetting to me. I need to be with someone who also is like not down with it in any situation. Like you need to be equal in those ways.
Yeah.
So she moves out to Paradise, California, to go to beauty school and be with her mom, but they did that young person thing, and they talked every night on the phone, so they weren't even like seriously broken up, Eventually Lonnie started taking classes at Chico University, and he and Carrie moved in together. So this is when they got engaged, but she kept catching him watching porn.
He's really bad at watching porn.
Just like, I mean, I guess it's like the mid to late 90s at this point, so he's got to watch it on his TV.
No.
Like she would get up and it'd be the middle of the night and he'd be like, whoa, click. Like, what's up, honey?
Maybe she was finding it in the history or something too.
Yeah, that's true. Because at this point, like throughout this, she's like, well, I was going through some stuff in the garage. And it's like, when you're in a relationship with somebody you don't trust, you're like, whoops, this fucking box of personal paperwork opened up.
Yeah. Maybe he had like a thing with getting caught too. I've heard about that. Like,
Oh, maybe.
it was a Dan Savage article I read once. Anyways, go ahead.
So then Carrie gets pregnant. And on June 17th, 1998, the two of them got married. And a few weeks later, they had a little boy.
Aw.
And then it's so funny how you're like, people need to stop fucking having kids. And then they had a baby and you're like, oh my God, great.
I think it's because I have to say that and I'm like used to saying that. So I just do it. It makes people happy. It like makes people happy for me to care about babies for some reason.
I appreciate your honesty. So between then and 2002, they had 2 more kids. Lonnie became a physician assistant. So oddly enough, I just saw a meme that was like, hey, motherfuckers, it's physician assistant, not physician's assistant. So I noticed that every single person on every single news piece or show or article that I watched or read said physician's assistant. And I'm like, fuck you, Lonnie. So sorry to any physician assistants, but that's like the appropriate
Physician assistant?
physician assistant, not physician's assistant. They're not like the secretary to the fucking,
Physician. Okay.
yeah, they're not like, they go through a ton of school. They're not just like handing the doctor a scalpel or whatever. I don't know what the job is, but there was a very aggressive meme about like, don't fucking call me that. Kind of like when I was doing massage and people would say masseuse and I'm like, masseuse implies sex work, which is fine, but it's not what I do.
Yeah.
It's a massage therapist.
Right.
Anyway, so he worked a shit ton at 2 different hospitals after he graduated as a physician assistant. He was round the clock at work. Somehow they managed to fuck again and they had their 4th kid in 2010. After she has their 4th fucking kid, she finds out that Lonnie is cheating on her. So she sees this text and he tells her it's just work stuff. It was like a text that was like, hey, send me a picture of you and the kids in your Halloween costumes. And he's like, it's work stuff. So then Carrie's like going full bore. She goes through their phone bill and finds a bunch of calls to and from the same number that was like newer. She called and it's Natalie, a work friend. She's just a friend. We're friends. I need to know about you if you're friends with my husband.
Right.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
have all the friends you want, but there are like, again, these are communication things that need to happen. So I don't believe you, Lonnie. So fucking Carrie goes to Natalie's door.
Oh, man.
I'm like, woof, but who among us, you know?
Right.
Natalie comes to the door. She denies it too. So here's this. So Carrie's like spinning by this gaslighting shit at this point. Carrie's out in the garage one day.
Just
What?
that feeling.
I know.
The feeling of the spinning and like thinking you're fucking insane when you like, oh God, it's like, I hope I never have to go through that shit ever again.
I mean, because your dude that you were with when we first started hanging out, he was insanely doing that to you.
Yeah. Yes. I was going nuts.
You were on the outside going like, oh my God, dude, this is making you crazy.
Yeah.
Mine didn't do that as bad. It was crazy who did that to me the most, like blatantly. And I would be like, okay.
I remember the dude that we were talking about from, 2 seconds ago. He would lie and gaslight about the weirdest shit. Like, I'd be like, what'd you have for lunch? And you'd be like, no, I went to McDonald's, but he like really went to Burger King. And you're like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
like it was stuff like that. It was like weird shit like that along with like huge shit, but like
how intentional was it? You know what I mean? Like, is that all thought out? I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around somebody thinking that way. It's just really weird and just evil.
Yeah. And like pathological. It was so bizarre.
Yeah. So I haven't even gotten into, I'm just talking about this woman's shitty husband. I haven't even gotten to like,
all right, let's go. So
Carrie's out in the garage one day and she found zip ties, thigh-high nylons, and syringes with clear fluid in them. And she's like, hey guy, what's this little collection of shit about? And he tells her that the nylons are hers. She's like, okay. The syringes were forgotten in his lab coat. And I'm like, that's not how that works.
No.
I've watched Nurse Jackie. Okay. And that the zip ties were for landscaping shit he was doing around the house, which I use zip tie shit all the time around. But she was like, I don't understand why it was all hidden in the garage. Like, why is this all like a collection of things together that's hidden in the garage?
Oh my God, he's going to kill her, isn't he?
And he goes, I feel like I have to hide everything because you make such a big deal about shit. And I'm like, peak gaslighting. Right? Turning it on you. I have to live this secretive life because of you. I'm doing normal shit. You're the one who's not being normal and you're the reason I can't be normal. Like, oh. So she thought it was hidden because maybe it was shit for him and his mistress and they were into some like shit or something. But when you've got 4 kids and you're trying to emotionally survive, you just keep going. Plus, remember that he has been the only dude that she's been with. And I think that's scary to think of, like, not being with that person.
Right. Yeah.
So a year later, a package comes to the house. It's thigh-high nylons with some lacy edging. He tells her they were for her, and she's just like, okay. But this is her every day, is this guy gaslighting her. And she was kind of going crazy with all of her doubts and speculations, and she's obsessed with this idea of an affair. But Lonnie ended up suggesting they see a marriage counselor, which is like, oh, you know, she's like, oh, that sounds great. But Carrie wanted Lonnie to move out while they were working on things. So pretty soon, with seeing the marriage counselor and everything, it seemed like they were communicating better, and Lonnie was moving back in. So by this time, it was May of 2012. Fast forward 3 months. Carrie wakes up in the middle of the night and Lonnie's not home. And by this point, cell phones were becoming what we're used to. So she's like, of course I have a fucking tracker on this guy. So she looks at the tracker and sees that Lonnie's not at the hospital. He's in Chico, which was like 30 to 40 minutes from his work, which was in Orville. Carrie immediately thinks he's with another woman, that he's with his mistress, and that she like moved to Chico or something. And she calls him and she's like, where the fuck are you? And this gaslighter goes, what do you mean? I'm at work. And Carrie watches the dot on her phone moving away from downtown Chico and back toward the hospital. And she kept trying to catch him in his lie by telling him she's like, hang up and call me from the landline at the hospital. You know, like, if you're at the hospital, she can see it with her own eyes. But this is like how, when you're so gaslit that you're like, I'm gonna catch you now. Like, this is when you have to tell me the truth. And it's like, they're never gonna tell you. So she's like, hang up and call me from the hospital. And he's like, okay. And he does 40 minutes later. He's like, see, I'm at the hospital. And she's like, dude, yeah, you drove back. And he's like, oh my God, GPS gets messed up all the time. You're being paranoid.
God, what the fuck?
Yeah. So when you're in something like this, and not telling you this, I'm just saying this for anybody who may have not experienced this, it makes you absolutely fucking nuts. And if you've ever been gaslit this bad, you know it like makes you dizzy. Like, your brain is just feeling it's fucking spinning. Carrie was starting to feel like she was going fucking crazy. Yeah. So then Carrie wakes up at 6 a.m. one day and texts Lonnie, who still wasn't home, another late night, but she was pissed. And she was going to catch him at his mistress's place. But as she opened up the garage, she was met by a group of Chico police officers and detectives. So, of course, she thought something terrible had happened to Lonnie, like an accident or something. And she was like, oh my God, what happened? They bring her in the house. They sit her down. Over the previous 2 years, 11 sexual assaults with the same MO had taken place around the Chico University campus.
Whoa.
They were all women in their early 20s, walking alone in the early morning / middle of the night. A man with a nylon stocking over his face would grab them and force them into the back seat of a dark-colored sedan or SUV.
I do the same thing.
Or SUV with covered rear windows. Police were surveilling the area, investigating these kidnappings / sexual assaults, and they noticed a car cruising the same area for an hour or so. So when it didn't fully stop at a light, they pulled it over and found Lonnie driving.
God.
Stacey Edwards, who was the deputy district attorney of Butte County, said, quote, they noticed some blankets in the back seat area of the car, which was significant because one of the victims said the car that she had been put into as being like a cave of blankets. So in Lonnie's car, the cops found syringes with clear liquid, nylons, athletic tape cut into strips, zip ties, leg restraints, a flashlight with a stun gun, gloves, handcuffs, and vials of Haldol and diphenhydramine. So Haldol is an antipsychotic used to treat schizophrenia. Side effects include dizziness, drowsiness, and trouble with thinking or controlled movements. Diphenhydramine is an antihistamine. It's known as a drowsy antihistamine and is more likely to make you feel sleepy than other antihistamines. The combination of the two basically just knocks a person out. So,
oh my fucking God.
Dude.
I like didn't see this coming. Oh my fucking God. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I have full body chills, including my nipples. I'm sorry I said whole word. I'm sorry I said the whole word. It's like nipples is weird, but sorry. Darla
calls her elbows nipples. She thinks they're... So I pulled another quote of Stacey Edwards. She said, quote, "The stockings were significant because the victim had said that the person that grabbed her off the street was wearing a stocking over his face. Two remember being zip tied and tape being used on their mouth or their eyes and being injected." So all of these things being found in his car with these victim accounts equaled them arresting Lonnie right away on the charges of rape, intention to commit rape, and 2 counts of kidnapping.
Oh my God.
Cut to Carrie. What the fuck? So it didn't make sense, but it all made sense.
Yeah.
Okay. She thought back to the night that she tracked him on her phone and he booked it back to work. And she's like, oh my God, he was probably out looking for a young woman. And like her calling kept one woman from having this happen to her.
Yeah.
So then she figured the affair was a decoy. And it turns out he was having an affair too because he's a piece of shit. But
with Natalie,
the woman that Carrie had confronted told the police that she'd been sleeping with this Opie Taylor looking motherfucker for a year. I'm going to post a picture of him because my description of him is correct.
hold on. I got to Google this.
Lonnie Keith.
Lonnie White? Sure. Okay, hold on. I actually typed in white. Damn it. You fucking nerd.
I know.
Get the fuck out of here with this shit. You look like a gaslighting rapist.
Ugh. So here's something that Carrie had said, quote, "I just kept saying to myself, this can't be happening. Lonnie and I were married for 15 years. It scares me that if they do have the right guy, I laid next to him in bed and had a family with him. Lonnie never showed me any signs of hate toward women. We have 2 daughters together and he was the best dad." I just want to do an aside here. Showing signs of hate towards women does not a rapist make, but this guy was definitely a sociopathic narcissist.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, gaslighting you is hate towards women. It's like,
right. But like when you're that close to, I mean, I think when she was describing, I think it was just the idea that she was having was more overt, you know?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so he pleads not guilty. Now, I couldn't find the police report, but if somebody knows how to get fast-tracked police reports, please send me an email because I need another time suck in my life. But I mean, it would also be like super helpful because there was something I watched and it was like, we don't want to give away the details because they are disturbing. And I'm like, where do I find them? Anyway, so right before his trial, they tacked on another assault from the spring of 2012. I mean, they think that at least the 11 that happened on the Chico campus were him, obviously. But for this particular one, there was evidence found. Quote, "Lonnie's DNA was found on one of the victim's underwear," was something that Stacey Edwards. Is it Stacey Edwards? Yeah, Stacey Edwards. I almost said Alyssa Edwards, and she is a drag queen. Yeah, that was a quote from Who the Bleep Did I Marry, which was a very dramatic, Snapped-esque show. And season 6, episode 6 is about Carrie and her experience and her piece of shit ex-husband.
Is she on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called Campus Creep. And I had to buy it for $3 on Amazon, and it was worth it.
Yeah.
He then switched his plea from not guilty to guilty, which I'm guessing, speculating, assuming that the 2012 assault was the one they got the DNA from, obviously.
Wait, so at this point, is she like, okay, I believe that he did this stuff? Like, when they came to her door, oh my God, no. What?
Everything I saw with her, I mean, is her speaking in hindsight. I watched this Dr. Phil like segment with her and he kept asking her questions like, yeah, but what about, didn't you see this? Didn't you see this? When you are fully spinning on being gaslit, it's like there's a sense of security in believing this person's lies. So she was so used to being led. This is me just like psychoanalyzing somebody else, but
it's so hard to explain too.
You can't when you're in it. You cannot. Yeah. And when you're out of it, I had said this in that episode where I talked about the ex who stalked me and stuff. You feel I shouldn't say you. I felt like it had happened to someone else because there was so much gaslighting and like lying about things that were happening right in front of me. But I remember that sense of security of like, just believe what he's saying. It makes things a lot easier. But like, there was no thought about like getting out. And then I can't imagine kids being involved in that.
Oh my God.
And like really wanting to believe this shit. So that's why I'm assuming the 2012 assault was the one they got the DNA from. The pile of circumstances circumstantial evidence that they already had, plus the DNA slam dunk, made his lawyer, Robert Marshall, be like, yeah, dude, you're fucked if we go to trial.
Right.
So they had to change his plea. As part of the plea change, the prosecution sought to dismiss remaining counts, including 2 counts of assault to commit rape and 3 counts of kidnapping. So Edwards had explained that the original kidnapping counts included special allegations, including administering a controlled substance and committing the act with an intent to rape. So had Keith been convicted of those charges and allegations, he could have faced multiple life sentences. So they were getting rid of that stuff. Marshall had said it was important that Keith had a determinate sentence because if he were to have been convicted on life sentences, it was very likely that he would have had no chance to be paroled. So initially, when they were trying to make this deal, the prosecution had offered to resolve the case with a sentence of 32 years to life, and the defense responded by asking for 26 years, which the prosecution accepted if Keith pled guilty instead of no contest. So he was originally like, I'm going to plead no contest because I didn't do it, even though they had like fucking DNA evidence.
Yeah.
But so the only reason that they could go after, he can't get hit on all 11. There were a lot of counts. Like, why were there more kidnapping counts than rape accounts? They couldn't even fully call all of these rapes because the women were injected and sedated, and some don't have very much memory at all about what happened. So this was everything they could get. I'm sure that when the 2012 DNA came through, it was something that was backlogged. That then was like, maybe they intentionally pulled it. Like, we need to pull this because this could be evidence against him and we want to like fully go for it. I'm assuming that's what they did. I don't know. I don't know how real cop work works. I just know how like a very dramatic police situation would go. So he ended up copping a deal for pleading guilty in August of 2014. His plea deal was 3 counts of kidnapping and 1 count of forceful rape. So because he made the deal, he was sentenced to 26 years in a California state prison. He took the plea but won't admit to it. So he's basically like, well, I had to take the plea to get this, whatever, because his lawyer's like, we can't explain all this shit away. He had told Carrie that the cuffs and all that shit was for her, all the shit they found in the car. And gaslighters have such ridiculous logic for shit, but when you're spun on it, it's so hard not to believe. Carrie ended up divorcing him.
Oh, thank fucking Christ.
In 2014. He'll be eligible for parole in 2035 and will have to register as a sex offender for life, but he'll also have to undergo some psych evaluation to determine if he's a sexually violent predator before he's even considered for parole.
Obviously.
So
yeah, he is. So
he's currently 47. So math, bleep, 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 he'll be 62 when that time comes around.
Bye, bitch. Jesus.
Bye. He's in prison in California.
Do you know where the term gaslighting comes from?
I do, but go ahead.
It comes from a play. It was like 1938 or 1940. I think it's 38, called Gaslight. And it's like this husband is like slightly manipulating him and his wife's environment, but insisting that she's mistaken or like isn't remembering correctly. And part of it was like dimming this gas light in their house.
Like a kerosene lamp.
Yeah. And just like, think about that. Like at the beginning of being gaslit, it's like small things where you're like, maybe I did move that vase. I don't remember. Like, yeah, whatever. And then it's like slowly, you can see how you can just like get into this whole fucking getting spun out. Next thing you know, like, oh my God, it's crazy.
So do you see how it lines up though?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It
was a good chaser. It was a good episode and a good
bonkers.
chaser.
Yeah. Next week, we're talking episode 4, Legacy.
So,
oh my God. Ugh, fuck.
Tasha's going to be pissed because it's about a child, but an abused 7-year-old girl lies comatose while Benson and Stabler try to figure out which member of her dysfunctional family is responsible for her state. Sorry, Tasha.
I hate this. I hate doing this. I hate all of you. No.
You made me do this.
I mean, whatever. Oh my God. And then the next episode's called Baby Killer.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I love how I'm like, I get upset. Like, I don't know what SVU is.
I know. You're like Toots.
Yeah, like I'm surprised. What?
What job have I been working in for 20 years?
So yeah, we'll hit that next week. But until then, follow us on all socials at svupod. Email us at svupod@gmail.com or check out our website, svupod.com. Yeah.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.